everybody? You look alive and awake today. So good to be with you at Access. I'm so honored you're here. Look, I don't take it for granted. There's so many amazing places you could be right now, but you're here with us, and so I'm honored that you're with us. If we haven't met, my name is Jason, and I'm one of the pastors here. I want to say hello to you, and also want to say hello to those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live. Will you welcome those who are joining us right now, everybody? Thank you for joining us. If you have your phone, you can pull it out and go to our Facebook page. Go to Facebook and search for Access Church and share that thing. You never know who's on the other end of that, who may need to hear what God wants to say to us today. Well, we're going to jump into our series Legacy in just a moment. But before we do, if you missed last Sunday, you missed a doozy. It was one of my favorite Sundays ever in the history of our church. We had this, kind of a big announcement. I don't know if you missed it or not, but if you missed it, we got a building, everybody. So exciting. Pumped about it. It's amazing, and I want you to see it. Now, when we said this last week, I want you to hear one thing one more time. We have been praying that God would give us a building of our own, a place that we can set up. And the reason is we wanted a sense of permanence, and secondly, we wanted the city to know we're here. We had 1,200 people here last Sunday, and people don't even know where our church is, and that's going to change, and I'm so excited about this. God gave us a building that is right on South Florida Avenue, just south of the Polk Parkway. Some 55 or 60,000 cars pass by every single week. We're going to try our best to get a sign up in the next few days or next couple of weeks, and I believe it's going to be a game changer for our church. Now, here's what I want you to understand. This is going to change everything, but I need you to get this. It'll change you if you can come see it. So tonight, we're doing something special right before all the demo work begins to start. We're doing tours tonight of the building, kind of an open house tonight, and I want you to come see it. Now, it's tonight from 5 to 8 o'clock. It'll take 15, maybe 20 minutes for you to walk through it and see it with one of our staff members. So you can drop in anytime from 5 to 8 o'clock. The address and information will be given to you on your way out on a card tonight. It is right next to Staples and Big Lots in South Lakeland. Come tonight, excited to see it with your eyes, but really to feel it with your heart. And I've been saying this to our staff. I'm going to say it to you. We believe that this changes everything, and I want you to see it, and I want you to feel it, and let's come together. Let's celebrate. We're going to have a party tonight. It's going to be awesome. Join us tonight, and let's celebrate this thing, all right? Well, let's get to work today on this idea of legacy. If you missed last week, we spent the whole time wrestling with one question that is so important. Here's the question. What will you do that will outlive you? When your life is gone on this side of eternity, what will you do that will keep on living on? Like, what can you do with your life that will leave a legacy? Last week, we introduced the theme verse for the series in the book of Psalm. David says this. He says, good will come to him who is generous. That's the first thing. And lends freely. And secondly, who conducts his affairs with justice. Surely he will never be shaken. So there's two keys here. We got to give to something that will outlive me and live in a way that my life outlives me. And then there's this line that I think is so important. It says, a righteous man or woman will be remembered forever. How amazing would it be if your life could be the kind of life that some generations later, they're talking about you because of the difference that you and I've made. So if you missed last week, we defined legacy this way. Legacy is where my life lives on, where my life and the impact that I've made keep on keeping on and keep on making a difference. Now today, I want to spend all of our time together talking to you about your dream, the dream for your life. And I want to end by talking about God's dream for your life. And if you could get both of these things to work together, I believe that you and I can be the kind of people whose life literally changes the world and leaves a legacy. You ever think about when you were a kid and how much fun it was to be a kid? You had no bills, no responsibility. When you wanted food, meals just showed up for you. You didn't have to do your own laundry. There was not a lot of pressure in your life. And when you had that kind of life, wasn't it amazing how easy it was to dream? You could dream of being anything you want. And as a kid growing up, people probably ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you had all kinds of good answers. Several years ago, I asked my two boys at the time, I said, guys, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Joey had a good answer. But then my son Gavin was a little boy at the time, and he goes, Dad, I want to be a dinosaur astronaut when I grow up. And cool. I mean, what does that mean? Do you want to go up into outer space and find dinosaurs? Because they're probably there. Or do you like what? He goes, no. I actually want to be a dinosaur that goes into outer space. And I was like, cool. Look, the world's full of cynics and haters and critics. I'm not going to burst this bubble right now. I said, you be the best T-Rex astronaut ever. You get up there, son. Make your dad proud. You know what I'm saying? Get up there and do this thing, right? When you get older, though, it's interesting how bills and pressure and then life has this way of getting in our heads. And it has this tendency of causing us to stop dreaming. It's amazing how simple voices can stop us from pursuing the life that God's called us to live. When I was in high school, I was a star basketball player on my basketball team. And I know when you see me, that's probably the first thing you think about when you think of me. I was like, did that guy play basketball? Yes, I did play basketball. Now, I went to a very small school. My whole graduating class was 14 people, but I was the valedictorian and I won the MVP one season for my team. And it wasn't that hard to make my basketball team. It really wasn't. You just had to be able to catch a basketball, I guess. And I made it. Now, my team was really, really not very good. I mean, look at me. If I'm one of the best players and I'm 5'10" and super white, we're not going to be like the best team ever. And so we had this season that was going not great, but we were having fun, and having fun and playing sports is kind of like saying, yeah, she's got a great personality. It just not always the best compliment for a team. Anyways, so we're having a bad season, and we played this school, and this school was a boarding school. So that literally meant that all of these guys, it was a guys-only boarding school. So all these guys did all week long was go to school, and then they had all the free time, and they could play basketball together and practice together as much as they wanted because they literally lived there at the school. So this team was already really, really good, and to make it worse for our team, they had a player who was a superstar. He went on to play Division I basketball on a full scholarship. He was amazing, and the first time we played, he dropped like 47 points on our team. That one kid outscored my whole basketball team combined by himself. I mean, he was a really, really good player, and we were really not anyways. And so second time we played them, though, we thought we were going to take this kid out. We had this whole idea for how we were going to win this game. This was going to be one of those monumental David versus Goliath kind of stories. And we show up to play this game, and in the first half alone, that same kid, number 23, scored 23 points on us in the first half. He was on his way to another record-setting game. At halftime, we sit around with the coach, and we're all feeling defeated and deflated in this moment. We think there's no way we're going to win this game. And spoiler alert, we still did not win the game. However, my coach had a plan. Now, this was so much fun to me. We had a kid on our team named Ryan, and Ryan was one of my favorite guys in school. He was not one of my favorite guys on the basketball team because he was terrible, but he was one of my favorite guys in the school because he was fun. He was the life of the party and the class clown. And my coach said, Ryan, you're getting in this game. You're starting the second half. To which my whole team thought, oh, we've thrown in the towel. This one's over. And he said, Ryan, what I want you to do is I want you to stay on number 23 the whole second half. When we're on defense, you be all up in his face. When we're on offense, you be in his face. Don't play offense. Don't worry about scoring. Don't worry about getting the ball. You just be in his face and talk to him. Talk about anything you want to talk about. You just talk the whole time. Just talk to him about anything you want. So second half tips off, we get going, and it was so funny watching Ryan. It made sense when we were on defense, but it made no sense when we were on offense. He was right up in this kid's face the whole time. And he's talking about little things. Hey, what's your favorite kind of TV show? You have seen any good movies lately? What's your favorite breakfast cereal? He just peppers this kid with question after question after question. And over time, the questions got progressively worse and worse. I'll never forget him running backwards down the court saying, so, boxers or briefs? What's the choice? And it was fun. And by the end, it got a little weird. I'll never forget. Ryan is playing defense on this kid, and he goes, so I'm out of questions. Let's talk about your mom for just a minute. The kid pushes Ryan down and gets ejected from the game. Now, that's not the moral of the story, okay? The moral of the story is in the first half, the kid scored 23 points on us. In the second half, he scored 1 point on a free throw against us. Let me suggest to you why. It's not because of Ryan's stellar defense. It's because he was in his head the whole time. It is interesting to me how life works. You turn 18, you graduate high school, you step into the life you feel like you were created to live. You're full of passion and dreams and hopes and aspirations, and you step into the next season of your life, and it amazes me how life has this way of getting in our heads, of making us feel like we'll never accomplish, never achieve, never be able to do anything that makes a difference. And so many people, for one reason or another, they give up on their dreams. And I just want to say to you, people who change the world are people who figured out how to actually live their dream. So what I want to talk to you about for these next few minutes is how can we live our dream? How can we be the kind of people who actually make a difference with our life and leave a legacy? Now, to do this, I want to look at the life of a guy named Nehemiah. Let me give you some context for Nehemiah's life. Nehemiah lived in the year about 450 or 445 BC, so roughly 2,500 years ago, and he was a slave. Nehemiah was Jewish, and the people of Israel had been taken captive in the land, or the Babylonian Empire. The Babylonians were ferocious and mean, that they had figured out how to make bronze into weapons, and so they had the strongest army and the best weapons to fight with. They demolished and abolished everyone in their paths. And Nehemiah is a slave serving the king in this time. And it's interesting. If anyone had a right to give up on their dream, it would be Nehemiah. If anyone had a reason to not dream and to not think past right here in this moment, it would be Nehemiah. He was a slave serving the king, but I want you to see something. Nehemiah inspires me because there was nothing particularly special about him. In the only Shakespeare quote that I know at all. I don't know any Shakespeare quotes but this one. This is from Act 2 in the 12th night. Shakespeare says this. He says, "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Like me, Nehemiah wasn't born great. He didn't achieve greatness, and yet he has this moment where greatness seems to come knocking at his door. It's thrust upon him, and it gives him a choice. What will I do with my dream?" Nehemiah chapter 1 starts this way. It says, "Hanai, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile and also about Jerusalem." Pause here for just a moment. You need to understand that the city of Jerusalem represented God. It was the capital for everyone that was Jewish. It was this huge, symbolic, beautiful city. And some 140 years prior to the story that we're reading, the Babylonians had come in and torched the city. They destroyed the temple. They destroyed the walls. They left no remains whatsoever. They destroyed the city of Jerusalem, and it broke the hearts of the people of Israel. So Nehemiah has some friends and relatives that go see it, and they come back, and he's like, "So what's up with Jerusalem? Well, tell me what's going on." Verse 3 says this. "They said to me, 'Those who survived the exile are back in the province and are in great trouble and disgrace.'" Look at this. He says, "The walls of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire." Now, instantly, he gets a picture in his heart, a vision of the city that his forefathers were buried in, the city that represents God. It lies in ruins, and this breaks his heart. Look what happens in verse 4. He says, "When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." It's like instantly something comes alive in Nehemiah's heart, and he has a vision for his life. And everything changes when you get a vision for your life. Now, remember I said this a moment ago. This attack on the city of Jerusalem had happened 140 years prior to this moment. So for 140 years, this was history. For potentially 6 generations of people going through school and learning history of the world, they would have learned that the city of Jerusalem, 140 years later, had been destroyed. And yet this story moved from the pages of a history book to something that moved his soul in a moment. I don't know if you've ever had this happen before. When I was in 6th grade, I remember learning about the atrocities of the Holocaust. And it was nasty and devastating. 6 million Jewish people were killed at the hands of a Nazi dictator in concentration camps. It was a disaster. It was a global atrocity. And we read about it, but sometimes you read about stories that happened in the past and you're like, yeah, that's sad, and then you turn the page to the next page. But when I was in 6th grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. London. Mrs. London was Jewish. She was just called Messianic Jewish, which means she was born Jewish, but she had made a decision to follow Jesus. And her mom had actually survived a concentration camp. She comes in and she tells us the story of being driven in on trains crammed in with people. She tells us about the living conditions. She tells us how she was separated from her husband, not knowing if she would ever see him again. She rolled up her sleeve and showed us a number that was tattooed on her wrist to identify her when she died. Okay, this is the life she lived. She told us of tossing and turning in bed, wondering if she would ever wake up the next day. I mean, this was the reality of her life. And instantly, this story now, it came alive for me. I remember going to the memorial in Washington, D.C. and seeing the atrocities in person. This last May, I happened to be in Israel, and I went to a Holocaust museum there in the city of Jerusalem. And it happened to be the National Day of Remembrance. All over the place, there was a hashtag, never again. May this atrocity never happen again in our world. And we were there, and the place was packed as people came to remember their forefathers who had died in these terrible, terrible concentration camps. And the way the building is built, it's built triangular in fashion. So when you start, as you zigzag through it, the walls get narrower and narrower. The idea was that you would actually feel it in your soul, that you would feel the sense of hopelessness as you walk through the narrowing halls of this. The story was just a story in a history book at one point for me, and it came alive. In the same way, Nehemiah, he'd heard the story. Jerusalem was torched. He was a slave serving the king. But in this day, he hears it, and something happens in his soul. He begins to have a vision for his life. Let me explain this to you. There's a huge difference between having a dream and having a vision. I'll say it to you like this. Dreamers imagine what could be. They picture the world a little bit better because of what their dream is. But visionaries, they picture what should be. Now, there's a difference between what could be and what should be. A dream is a dream, and your dreams matter. How you dream shapes how you pray, and how you pray determines who you become. So what you dream about matters, but ultimately what you need to know is that God wants you to have a vision for your life. A vision is a dream. It's a picture of what could be, but it's fueled by the conviction of what should be. And what's fascinating is all of a sudden Nehemiah gets a vision for his life, and that vision is birthed in the cauldron of pain. All of a sudden he feels this pain in his soul, and there is this frustration. It shouldn't be this way. This represents my God, and this represents my forefathers. This cannot be. So often we think of the frustrations in our life as inconveniences. Let me point something out to you. Your frustration is actually a gift. Your frustration is a gift because your frustration actually points you to the thing in your life that you might be uniquely created to do. The vision in your heart that God has for you is uniquely shaped often by a moment of frustration. So what would it look like if we leaned in? Another way I could say this to you is this. What ticks you off may reveal what makes you tick. The things that you care about, the things that break your heart, that don't affect anyone else, they may reveal the thing that makes you tick, the reason you were created. What do you see that no one else in the world sees? What are the needs around you that everyone else seems oblivious to, but it breaks your heart? I'll never forget being in a car with several friends one time, and we pulled up next to a person on the side of the road, and they were asking for money. They had a sign. And it was interesting. There was like 3 different responses in the car. That one person said, I'll never give money to someone like this. Who knows what they'll spend it on? Another person said, yeah, but that's not our responsibility to do that. We should be givers, but I don't give money. I go out and buy food, and I bring people food. That's better than the first person. And the third person said, I actually have this dream for my life of opening a center that helps rehab people in this situation and gets them back on their feet and helps them find a job and empowers them to live a different kind of life. All 3 encounter the same moment, and yet for some it breaks their heart and for others it doesn't. The thing that frustrates you, the thing that ticks you off, it actually might reveal the thing that makes your heart tick, the reason that you are alive. So Nehemiah has his heart broken. He gets this vision. The walls of our city lie in ruins, and something has to be done. And instantly, I believe that he gets a vision for his life, and so he starts to pray, and he starts to wait. He starts to pray, and he starts to wait. Now here's the thing you need to understand about waiting. Waiting time isn't wasted time when you're waiting on God. I would rather wait for God's providential timing than try to force the issue myself. Waiting time isn't wasted time when waiting on God. So he starts waiting for God to give him a moment, and he prays and he prays and he prays. If you have your Bible later today, read Nehemiah chapter 1. The next 6 verses after what we read are his prayer of him saying, God, let me be the answer to this need I see in the world. Let me be the one who rebuilds the wall. He prays and he prays and he prays. And then I want you to see something interesting. At the end of his prayer, verse 11, this is how he ends. He says, Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. He says this, give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. Like, God, give me a moment, give me some favor in this moment. And then there's this interesting little moment. There's this little hanging 6-word sentence at the end of the prayer. Now, you need to know, when the Bible was written, there weren't verse numbers attached to it. Those came hundreds of years later. But what's interesting is this feels like it should be verse 12, but it's not. It just kind of hangs there, these 6 words. He says, I was cupbearer to the king. Kind of interesting. I was cupbearer to the king. Now, the cupbearer is an interesting job. Your whole job is to drink whatever the king is going to drink before he drinks it to make sure that it's not poisonous. So this is a slave's job. Sounds like kind of a cool job. It's like having a cool butler job with a terrible retirement plan, honestly, because everything's good. You get to taste the king's wine, drink the king's drinks until that one day if someone poisons something and you fall over dead. That's the terrible retirement part of it. It's just not the best job ever, but this was his job. I was cupbearer to the king. Now I want you to hear something. So much of communication isn't words. So much of your communication is actually tone. It's tone. It's the way you say things. Here's an example of what I mean by this. This two-word phrase, you dummy, can be said two different ways, right? What if I texted you this, you dummy? You don't know if I'm like, you dummy, you idiot, what's wrong with you? Or, you dummy, you dumb, why are you doing that? Man, stop it, shut your mouth, right? Like, tone changes everything, right? And so he says, I was cupbearer to the king. I want to position it to you this way. What if what he was saying is not, I'm just a slave? What if the way he was saying it was, look, God, you uniquely positioned me where I am on purpose, for a purpose. You gave me proximity to the king. I am a cupbearer to the king. To which I would say to you, do you think you're where you are on accident? Do you think you're not positioned by God on purpose? That when God forethought the whole world and thought about all the needs in the world, do you think that he put you where he did on accident? Don't you realize that you see the world a unique way? You have different things that make your heart come alive. God placed you where he did on purpose. So your friends are your friends on purpose. Your job is your job on purpose. The amount of money you make is on purpose. Your house is on purpose. Everything that makes you you was designed by a master artisan on purpose so that you could leverage it to change the world and to change the lives around you. So then Nehemiah prays this prayer, and for 40 days, he prays and he works. He prays and he works. And I want to give you a template for how to achieve your dream. He begins to pray as if it depends on God, but he works as if it depends on him. So often what Christians do is we just pray. Come on, God, make this happen. God, make this happen. But for 40 days, Nehemiah works. For 40 days, he comes up with a business plan. For 40 days, he thinks through every cost that it's going to take to make this dream a reality. And he prays as if it depends on God, and he works as if it depends on him. And then a miracle happens. It's interesting. Chapter 2, he has this moment with the king where the king's like, yo, what's up? Why are you so sad? And he's like, why wouldn't I be sad when the city that represents my God and the city where my great-grandfathers are buried lies in ruins? The king says, well, if it breaks your heart, let's do something about it. He goes, I'll help you. I'll get you the stuff. What do you need? And because he had prayed and worked, he had a business plan to present to the king. Now, what's interesting is the rest of the story is a fascinating journey through his life, and it's filled with leadership lessons. Examples like him leading the people to the wall of the city, not knowing where they were going, and he leads them there to this place, and they have no idea what's happening, but then he gets there and he says, look at this. See the way the city lies in ruins? This is a disgrace to God. Let's rebuild it now. And the people rally around him and they rebuild the wall. Now here's what I want to say to you. Some of you have reached this part of your dream. You've reached the part where you've gotten the favor of God and it feels like you're stepping into it. But if there is one place that I feel like your dream can fall apart, it is at the voice of a critic, and it's at the voice of a hater. You need to understand this about your dream, is that every significant dream will face opposition. If you have a dream for your life, someone's going to try to shoot holes in your dream. Now, here's a few thoughts on people who are opposing you and opposing your dream. You need to first understand that everything that matters is going to have opposition. It just will. Because if it matters, someone's going to want to stop it. Usually people who want to attack your dreams are people who gave up on theirs a long time, and they want to see you walk through what they had to walk through. Let me say this to you. God had a purpose for your life before anyone else had an opinion about your life. So you need to pray as if it depends on God and work as if it depends on you. And in the moments that the voices of critics rise up in your life, you can turn back to the place where you knew that God led you to this moment to dream. Now I want you to notice this. We're getting towards the end of Nehemiah rebuilding this wall. This wall was significant because it kept outsiders on the outside, and it protected the sanctity of their belief in God. It kept their religious views there inside of the city. So Nehemiah is putting the final touches on it. He's up on a ladder, up on the wall, and it says this. Some of his enemies gathered around, Nehemiah chapter 6. It says, when word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab, which if you're looking for a boy's name, there's 3 of them, I guess, and it says, and the rest of our enemies, so these are haters, these are critics, that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it, hashtag humble brag. It says, though up to that time I had not set the doors in the gates. He goes on and says this, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message, come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. Now let's pause here for a moment. Remember, these are enemies. These are people on the outskirts of the city, not people who live in the city. These are not friends. These are barely acquaintances. These are enemies. And they invite Nehemiah to come off the wall and to meet them in a place called Ono? Oh, no, they didn't, right? No. Not going to Ono. You should never go to a place called Ono with an enemy. You should not. Oh, no. But they were scheming to harm me. Oh no, of course they were. So I sent the messengers with them with this reply. I want you to pay attention to what he says. He says this, look what I'm doing. I'm carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? Listen, this is like the Instagram of the year 450 BC. There's always going to be someone with an opinion, someone who has an amount of courage they feel like they can shoot a hole in your dream and stop you from living the life you were created to live. But Nehemiah gives us this picture. When you have a dream for your life, it's going to require a certain amount of perseverance where you say to those who are critics and haters, I'm not coming down. Can't stop, won't stop. You cannot stop me from doing that which is in my heart. Perseverance is ultimately what wins. Let me say this to you. Maybe you're here and you've struggled with your dream. Maybe you're like so many people who float through this life aimlessly wanting a dream. Let me offer you this thought. The book of Psalm chapter 37, David says this. He says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Now, this is a beautiful, passionate verse. I used to think what it meant was if I love God, he'll give me what I want. But can I offer you a thought? Check this out. When you actually love God and delight yourself in the Lord, he's actually going to give you a heart transplant. He's going to help you have a vision to meet needs in the world that are the vision that he has for the world. It's going to reveal his heart to you so much, and you're going to see it in such a different kind of way. I had a professor in college say to me one time, he goes, listen, if you'll find what breaks the heart of God and give your life to it, God will give you so much blessing you can't even stand all of it. Let me tell you about for just a moment what breaks the heart of God. Within driving distance of our church here in Lakeland, there's 650,092 people really within about 20 to 30 minutes of where we are right now. This is based on the latest statistic. According to one research place I found, 19.3% of these people consider themselves some sort of Christian, whether it's church going or not. I don't even want to shoot holes in that number, but let's just say it's true. 19.3% of this number, that means 522,024 people in our backyard have no church affiliation, have no connection to God. And I believe that this breaks God's heart. Let me try to paint a picture for you this way. If you were to take 522,024 people and you were to line them up in a single file line, toe to heel, heel to toe, and you were to start a line from right here on the stage and you were to go out the doors of this church auditorium and you were to leave and go right on Lakeland Highlands Boulevard and you were to get on the Polk Parkway and get on I-4, this is what it would look like. That line would stretch all the way around the outskirts of Lakeland, all the way on I-4, all the way through Orlando, all the way past the east part of Orlando, all the way to Daytona Beach. If you were to start a single file line with all these people, the line from those just in our backyard with no connection to God would be 100 miles long. Yesterday, my wife drove from my house to Daytona for a wedding. The drive took 2 hours. Imagine making that drive, and every moment you're passing dozens and dozens of people lined up toe to heel, heel to toe to heel, heel to toe, all the way from here, all the way to Daytona Beach, 100 miles. And if time were to stop now, if all of these people were to die in this moment, those 522,000 people would spend eternity away from God. Let me say this to you. If that doesn't break your heart, you need to check your heart. If that doesn't break your heart, I would like to offer you the simple thought, maybe this church isn't actually a fit for you, because if it breaks the heart of God, it better break our hearts. So what can we do about it? That number is staggering. This number, if we all gave the rest of our lives and didn't work, and we went door to door knocking on doors, and we told every person we could about Jesus, we can't reach this many people, just us. Can I tell you what we can do as a church? We can reach one. And if all of us will invest our lives in reaching one and then another one, and that person reaches one and another, we can make such a dent in that number that the line gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Let me end with this thought. A couple of years ago, my wife had some event that she was singing at. So it was just me and the kids at home that night, and one of my friends called me and he goes, "Hey, you're not going to believe this. We're having a party at my house. We're having a contest to see who can do the best fried turkey. Will you come be a judge?" So, well, you have me at hello. Let's go. Come on, So I took my kids over to the house. It was my good friend's house. They have 2 kids. We have 3. My kids love their kids. They've been to their house many times. They're just amazing friends. And we had this fried turkey competition, and it was amazing. And I was there with my friends, and the party was maybe 30 people, 15 or so that I knew and 15 that I didn't know. And my kids were off playing, just having fun like they always do. We had this amazing meal, and then it was time for me to go. So I said, "All right, kids, let's go. Burn kids, round up, let's roll." And my 2 boys came running to me. They were ready to go. But at that time, my daughter was about 3, and she didn't come running. She always comes running for me. She didn't come running. So I yelled, "Ella!" No response. So I ran upstairs thinking surely she's upstairs in one of the bedrooms playing with the kids, and I run upstairs, "Ella!" No response. I start to feel my heart beating just a little faster. I ran downstairs, ran outside thinking maybe she's outside playing in the backyard. Ran outside, "Ella!" No response at all. At this point, my face went flush. I came inside and I said to the host of the party, I was like, "Hey, you guys know where Ella is?" My mind went to all the worst case scenarios. What if one of these people I didn't know took her? What if I've lost her forever? My heart is beating through my chest in this moment, and I yell one more time, and I hear this faint voice, "I'm in here, Daddy." I ran. She was in the bathroom. She had learned how to potty train. Finally, she was there. She was just going to the bathroom. She had no idea anything was wrong in this moment, and I grabbed her as she was sitting on the toilet, and I said, "Don't you ever do that to me again." She had no idea because all she knew was that she had just gone to the bathroom, so she was confused, and we worked through that and whatever. But it was this weird moment. Let me tell you something. In that moment when I didn't know where Ella was, can I tell you what I did not do? I didn't go to my 2 boys and be like, "Well, still got 2/3. We're good to go. Let's ride out." Do I love my 2 boys? With all of my heart. But in that moment, where was my focus? Who was missing? I think when God looks down from heaven, it breaks his heart that in our backyard, there's 522,024 people who have no connection to him whatsoever. Okay, you want to be a person who leaves a legacy? You want to be a part of a church that leaves a legacy? Let's care about the 522,024. Can I say it to you like this? This is the reason the building matters to me. People are like, "Jason, you don't have to set up and tear down anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, that's awesome. It's amazing. I love it. I love it for our teams. Our teams are amazing." But the reason this matters is I want people in our city to know so that we can make a dent in the 522,024. Okay, let me say this to you. What would it look like if you let the thing that breaks the heart of God break your heart? You want to leave a legacy? You want to make a difference with your life? Care about the things that break God's heart and watch as he pours his blessings out on your life. Would you bow your head and close your eyes all across this room? Lord, we love you, and we want to care about the stuff that you care about. God, give us the courage to dream your dreams and to have a vision for our life, but may it be fueled by the things that you care about. God, I thank you that you've uniquely placed us in this time and in this season for such a time as this. God, our friends are not our friends on accident. Our relationships are not there on accident. Give us the courage to make a difference in those lives so that we can reduce the line, so that many, many, many people can make the decision to follow you, Jesus. God, I thank you that if we want to leave a legacy, it starts by us caring about what you care about. So give us eyes to see the world around us that needs us and a heart that breaks for the thing that breaks yours. Thank you for it, God.